Just be said about your European period, or shall we come to Cambridge?
There's so much to be said about it, I think we'd better come to Cambridge.
Okay, so when did you come back to Cambridge?
I came in 96.
96.
Yes, I was appointed in 95. I couldn't arrive before January, so Zarsteiner was my acting president till I arrived in 96. So I took over in February 96.
This is
Newhall was president of England.
President of Newhall. Tell me your reactions on arriving in that grey brick building.
It was all sorts of things, like I was astonished at how well they spoke English. I felt myself sitting at a high table and thinking, they have a wonderful vocabulary, because of course I'd been speaking the English of a lingua franca for 3 or 4 years. And also that people were incredibly nice. And I can remember having Oxford friends over, and there being the usual Oxford conversation, and people afterwards coming up and saying, is everything all right? Because we'd been having a good argument, and people were much calmer, much quieter. I remember saying to some former head of house, I can't remember which one, is everybody really always so nice in Cambridge? And he said, almost certainly, but just occasionally I sort of make sure it wasn't enough.
Is there a general difference in Cambridge, do you think?
Oh yes. Much more peaceable, much less political, although that's changing a lot. When I first went on to, I think I must have been Pro Vice Chancellor, that was in 98, I think it was. Being at an early meeting with Alec Brers and the senior management team, because we met at 8:30 on Monday morning, and discussing people running for council, and making sure that there was going to be a proper election, because certain members running for council whom we were not desperately keen on. And this having been decided, I said in Oxford speak, so how would you like us to get the vote out? And there was a terrible pause, but everybody looked pained. And Alex said, well, I think we wait to see how people vote, don't we? In Oxford we didn't wait to see how people voted at all.
You fixed it.
We went out and, we didn't fix it, but we generally went out and lobbied and worked at it, just as if it had been a parliamentary election.
Now, how would you account? I mean, it's very interesting contrast.
I can only assume that it's the much stronger scientific ethos of the place. I mean, I know that that's that the two places are both marvellous at all sorts of different things depending on the people doing the subject at the time, but there is a more scientific attitude here, I think. I mean, an observer's one. I mean, let's see how they vote. Let's watch them and see what comes out of it. Whereas in Oxford it was, let's fix it. Let's get it done.
Was it anything? Supposedly the relations between the university and the colleges is fairly different in the two places, in that Oxford, the colleges are more autonomous.
So they always say. I'm never sure about that, because with the joint appointment system I can never understand how they can be. I felt that the colleges were much less supportive in Oxford, but I think that's because I came when I did at a sort of moment of change here. I mean, one of the things that I think must always be remembered about Alec, and perhaps isn't, is that he did so much for the colleges by fighting for the college fee. He was completely tireless, he was incredibly active, he carried all the colleges behind him, and I think the colleges committee changed into being a really useful body from that moment. It was a huge legacy, and I don't think he's ever valued enough for it.
I hadn't realised, I just read Noel Lannon's The Dons, and I hadn't realised how close it was under Margaret Thatcher to losing the college fee.
Oh, very, and of course very much again in the 1990s.
Was it?
Yes, very. They wanted it out. And, with the help of a very friendly head of HEFC at that moment, we got through.
Who was
Without
that?
it, we wouldn't have. I've forgotten his name and I don't produce it. Because he's a former Oxford person.
Because you can keep, I mean, I've written a history of Cambridge, and I more or less said, well, Henry VIII nearly destroyed them, and then Laud, would have modified it considerably, but after that everything was fine. And I hadn't realised it still goes on.
Oh, it's a daily fight.
And at the moment there's another threat, isn't there?
Oh, huge. It's been, I went into university management of various kinds and administration, however you like to describe it, in 1973. From that day, the amount of money per student has gone down in the British system. We have had less money to do more from that moment, and we've had the fights with government and the government pressure have just gone up and up. And I think both Oxford and Cambridge are absolutely right that they must diversify the sources of their funding. And a huge amount has been done. I mean, when I left Oxford, it was 65% dependent on the state, and now it's something like 27%.
What about Cambridge?
Cambridge is the same. It's exactly
I mean, could we make up that 27%? Because
well, I don't think we need to make up necessarily. I'd like to get it down below 10, and I'm sure we could. I don't think we have to kick it out because Harvard takes government money.
Yeah. But
he who pays the piper,
because there's this new hefty plan to force the university or to fail it on its governance.
Oh yes, yes. Well, these have come and gone and come and gone.
And that would mean that we'd have to take external board instead of self-government.
Yeah. Well, I'm all for biodiversity institutions. That's one reason why I like women's colleges. I just think you should have a huge range of institutions, all of which will bring something different. And I would deeply deplore losing the self-government of Oxford and Cambridge completely. I think we've done very well here. I think Alison's trod a very delicate path between what will throw babies and bathwater out together and what is merely a bit of bathwater. But it is a huge danger because these aren't just teaching institutions. People have said it's like running an opera house or something. The people who are here are stars. They could all go elsewhere, and the only reason they don't is because they've got a stake in this place.
Exactly. But let's turn back to Newhall. What is the art?
Murray Edwards College.
Sorry, yes. Well, tell me about that. How did you? Your name will go down as the lady who procured for 30 million pounds from somewhere. How did you manage to do that?
Well, it goes back to Dame Rosemary, of course, as everything with Newhall does. When Newhall was set up, they couldn't agree on a name, so the Newhall was what was written on the incorporation document, and the Newhall, for better or for worse, was used since, because there were various names and none of them were allowed for those reasons. So she always said, it's a dreadful name, never mind, when a benefactor comes along to give us the endowment, our foundation endowment, we will change the name, and they will have the choice of the name. So she told that story in her time, and I'd inherited it, and I inherited it from her. She was very forceful about it. She said, it's nearly 50 years, come along. So I told the story everywhere, because I knew when I arrived that the college was in pretty bad trouble. Buildings were falling down, and morale was rock bottom. So the first thing to do was to get a really wonderful person, which we did, sort out what needed to be done with the buildings, deal with English heritage, and because I was on my own and I had no development office, nothing like that, I chose the most effective way of raising money, which was to go for the big gift and the name. And from the beginning, I went to look for a name. And various extraordinary and unsuitable people offered themselves and were brushed aside, and others were occasionally flirted
Bin Laden College of...
Not El-Fayed College.
Yes.
And there was one very serious and very positive supporter who is still a supporter, whom I value greatly, but whose name shall not go down at this point.
Yes.
And at that point, because our buildings had been falling down, Ros Edwards, as she is, had emerged already with £1 million to help the collapse. She was one of the few alumni who ever rallied to the complete collapse of the dome, the dining hall, the kitchens, the library.
This can go on to the interview. Yeah. And
so I told Ross and Steve the story some time ago when talking about their gift way back, just as casually. I had no idea that they were at all in this league at that point. And I suddenly got a phone call saying, we've been thinking about it, we'd like to do it. They are enormously thoughtful people. They believe in a lot of good things, like the best thing to support is higher education, because that's what produces the doctors who cure the diseases, and the economists who help, and all the people who will actually change the world for the better will come through higher education. They also believe that we must make a move to philanthropy and to, shouting philanthropy from the housetops, because Cambridge was sort of built on philanthropy. Until 1919 there was no government money in any British, either Oxford or Cambridge. We've got to go back to it. We simply have got to go back to it to survive. So the agreement was finally made with them in 2005, but luckily we knew about it in 2004. We were able to tell Rosemary, and she knew about it. And we said to her, we want to call the college Murray. No. And I said, well, we really do. Oh, well then. And she was very happy. And even on my last visit to her, just before she had the operation, which she didn't recover, she was saying, is it really all right? Is it really happening? Because, of course, her life's work was then secure at last. So that, I've forgotten quite where I was, but...
And then, so it's the Murray Edwards? It's
Murray Edwards, yes, and it's Edwards after them.
Yeah.
They decided that they could afford one really big gift. So the family decision was for us. He has an Oxford college that deserves a lot of support. I'm sorry that they were the unlucky one, but this is a family gift.
That's very nice. It's a women's college.
Yes.
That's really lovely. I usually ask people just one or two general questions afterwards. One is about religion, about God, who hasn't curiously come up in this interview yet, except in terms of second sight and things like this.
Yes.
Have you ever been, presumably you have to preside in chapel?
No, we don't have a chapel.
You don't have
it's
a chapel.
Secular college.
Okay, well it's quite often the scientists I'm interviewing who have proclaimed themselves to be agnostics or atheists, like Pat Bates, and are standing up in King's Chapel.
Yes, no, I've never had to.
But what is your...
I have absolutely, I find anything, I'm a Taoist. I mean, the only permanent thing is change.
You're a Taoist?
Yes.
Oh, good,
yes,
good.
Yes. I can't cope with complicated sort of anthropoid religions. I mean, my aunt always used to say, I can't understand a God who sent his own son rather than killing himself. I rather sort of, if you start putting it into terms of human relationships, I just can't do this. I can see that it was necessary to invent one, but the notion of an all-knowing, all-seeing, and certainly above all caring kind of...
So you've never been religious?
Absolutely, no, I don't think. It doesn't exist in me. My father was a serious, straightforward Christian for whom the mysteries of complex physics merged into the mysteries of creation, but not me.
Not you. Another one generally I ask about is politics.
Yes.
What have been your...
Old-fashioned Labour, but not new Labour, I suppose.
What were your view? I mean, the litmus test nowadays is the Iraq War.
Oh, against. Shock horror, yes. I mean, how could one live for something which would be so destructive, run by people who didn't know what they were doing?
Do you think we were lied to, or just...
Yes, I think we were lied to. I think we were lied to because I was told, and I tried to arrange an event for that particular moment, about 6 months in advance. I was told by a large corporation in this country, no, we'll be at war then. We haven't actually declared war, and we haven't been through the process at that point, but certain people already knew. And, no, I mean, for all sorts of reasons, I think we were lied to, but that's one thing. Yeah.
Good.
And I've tried to do my best ever since to, we started having Iraqi academic visitors in New Hall from first year after the war, and anything we can do to rebuild the situation and help with the academic rebirth of Iraq. That's something I hope to go on and do later.
Excellent. The other thing is, do you, amidst all your administration, do you still get time for any academic activities?
No, I'm doing an awful lot of things, but they're not academic. I think my real nature is to be a sheepdog, and so I need sheep. And so it's, you know, things like working with the organisation that my father worked on for refugee academics. I mean, I'm now the honorary secretary of that. Working with things of George Soros's in different parts of Central Asia and elsewhere. You know, I'm always doing a lot of things, but
not Yuan drama.
Not Yuan drama. Eyesight partly. Yes. I couldn't cope with hoping to do a lot in old age. I don't think my eyes were nearly good enough.
What are your plans now? Because this is your last year,
in September.
Yeah.
I am already very pleased to be the chair of CAMFED, which will be very exciting, I think, for me, because I don't know if you know about CAMFED. Started in Cambridge by Anne Cotton. Girls' education in Africa, particularly starting in Zimbabwe, then Zambia, Tanzania, Ghana, Malawi. Getting them into secondary schools, getting them out of secondary schools into some kind of ability to make some money, just so that they're not vulnerable, so that they can support the very extended families they have and that sort of thing. So that's an institution that in 10 years has gone from her raising the money by baking cakes and selling them in Cambridge Market to the latest donation of 1.8 million from Goldman Sachs. And there's an institutional upscale and a sort of succession to be managed. I'm very proud that the organisation has only 2 expats who are Zimbabweans working in Cambridge. Everything on the ground is done by the locals, who are remarkable people. So that I'm really looking forward to that. Going on with CARA, which is the refugee academics, and mainly Iraq, problems of what to do for the best for the Iraqi academic exile. I'm trustee of European Humanities University, which was kicked out of Minsk by the loathsome Belarusian government, and is now in Vilnius. I'm trying to get that going, and dealing with the fact that we left the library in Minsk, and 3 weeks ago 3 buses full of armed police and riot gear with live ammunition and Kalashnikovs came in to terrify 15 women running the library. So there's plenty to do.
And you'll stay on in Cambridge?
I shall live in Cambridge, and my daughter and grandchildren, who are very important, are in Oxford, so I've got 2 great places to be.
Good, well I think that's probably a very nice note on which to end, and to thank you very much, Anne, for a lovely interview.